Hey guys, it's Dustin here with DD's Pro Tech. Just driving along here and wanted to talk a bit about diesel trucks and emissions here. So we're in Ontario and there's been constant conversations about, oh, drive your diesel till it starts giving you trouble, then delete that shit. And again, years and years past, there had some truth to that, even in my own trucks. That said, I own an automotive repair shop that specializes in diesel pickups. And we get dozens of trucks in every year, well, every month, and a lot of them have emissions problems. And that's that question mark about if I fix this emissions problem versus is another problem going to come on. So like if I have an EGR problem and I drive like that for a while, am I going to damage my DPF? That's not good for it, right? It does take life out of it. And we can go through all of those things with you at DD's Pro Tech. Any of our advisors can. We're trained, certified to be able to explain this stuff. Not the point of today's conversation. The point of today's conversation is if you don't know what you don't know. Now, I'm not saying you have to be an engineer to understand this stuff. I'm just saying is the fact that I've got a truck here in Regen. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting at 90%. I'm going to show you the screen in a second. And we're just cruising, right? No trailer, nothing on behind me. It was at 102 when I got home last night. It was ready to try and regen, but I was stopping. I was home for the day. That's okay. 102 is not unsafe. Up to 110, you'll see it. But if you don't know what your percentage of your DPF, how are you supposed to use it right? Let's say it was at 100%, or let's say it was at 95%, and it was ready to regen, and I shut it off, and I drove 5% of my fill, and then it was stuck again. You can see how these problems can start to just, oh, you're never really getting a good burn off. But if you know, you can plan your driving. You can plan how you're going to go. So let's see what that looks like. So there's my screen up there. You can see my EGTs in the middle, sitting about 900. There's 1,000. You can see my boost here. I'm just cruising down a highway, slowing down into town into a 60 zone. You can see my fuel rail pressure there on the side, about 14,000 as we idle down. You can see my oil temp, my coolant temp, right around the 190. I'm happy. It's -1 today, or Fahrenheit, guys. You're about 30 degrees. Okay. Let's just turn to that side there. Now you see 85% and falling. There's a little light, it's hard to see in the top of the screen just above the pyro in green. That is showing my regen is on. You see my intercooler temp at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty happy. That means my intercooler is making some working. And then you'll see my exhaust back pressure there at 18 PSI, which is something I use for turbocharger information when I'm driving, especially towing. And below that, you see exhaust gas temperature number 3. So in this truck, there's 4. One's at the front, 4's at the back. Number 3 is the one just behind the DPF. So what you're seeing there is you're seeing my exhaust temperature in the manifold at 800, now 700 and falling because I'm decelerating. Here, I'll accelerate a bit, see that go up, and it climbs pretty quick, right? And the regen burn off in the filter is pretty constant there at 1,060, 1,070. You know, that is the peak burn off. Now, if you're a wood stove guy, you know that a nice clean burn in your wood stove keeps the creosote out, keeps the chimney happy, keeps a nice burn, doesn't overburn your wood and waste it. But also, you know, you're not burning skunk wood. If you are, you might have to heat it up a little, wood, things like that. So you have to really consider that stuff when you're running a wood stove. Your DPF is just like a wood stove, okay? You have to control the draft in a wood stove. You control your throttle and use in the truck. You look at the other temperatures like engine temp, coolant temp, atmospheric temp. How cold is it outside? Am I gonna burn quicker or slower, right? If you're a wood stove person and you try and run your wood stove in October when it's plus 12, it doesn't burn as well. If it's not a good breeze above your chimney, you don't get that updraft. It doesn't burn as well. You have to compensate with your draft. Below, do I not? What's my temperature at? In peak land, I want to keep that burn off rate at 1,000 degrees or above, 1,100, perfect. Now look at my percentage at the top. We've spoken for what? 4 minutes, it says on my thing. And I went from 85 to 79. That's 6% in 4 minutes. So I'm dropping, on average, let's say 1.5% a minute, maybe a little less, right, for quick math. So at 100%, if I was fully clogged, we're talking an hour and 15 minutes. And I will tell you, the closer it gets to the bottom, the faster it burns off because you have less ash load in there, right? It's almost like in a wood stove analogy, you're getting those coals are just putting out that good heat, right? That's it. That's all we have to worry about. It's not about keeping your boost or your load down. It's about getting to a temperature and sitting there and letting it finish. Now let's say, here, let's turn my camera a bit. Let's say, hey, I'm at my destination, right? I'm gonna pull in this guy's driveway on the right here. I'm where I need to go. Now I'm at 77%. The difference is what most people don't understand is that is not going to start up again as soon as you get the truck back up to operating temperature. Let's say you shut off the pump gas, right? Or I guess pump diesel, I should say. My bad. It's not going to go back into regen. It's going to start climbing from 77% in this case, right? Or whatever you stopped at. So if you were at 98%, you shut the key off. Now it's going to go back to 100 before it calls for a regen. It will only call for a regen actively, like you see here, when it's full. Now another thing, and I can't turn this camera on, I don't think enough, but my dash does not say I'm performing a regen, and I'm in a new generation Power Stroke. Why? I don't know. I think there's 2 forms or even 3 forms of regen. Passive, which happens just naturally while you're driving, depending on your deceleration with the right temperature. There is active, where it's actually injecting diesel fuel into that exhaust cycle to preheat and start the incineration process in the DPF. That one is technically, in most workshop manuals will tell you the dash will come up and say, drive to clean exhaust. That's what they're talking about. I can tell you I've owned this truck for 3 years. It currently has 173,000 kilometers. I have never seen that message. I've had customers come in and say, my truck doesn't regen. I've owned it for 5 years. It's never regen. BS. It has. You just didn't know. Because the dash didn't tell you. We keep them in stock at DGs. We sell them by the caseload for this purpose right here. What do I want to know? Critical information. Look at that. We're down to 75. We've got 2 more minutes of talking. You came down 4 more %. Right? Makes sense. So I've got about a 25-minute drive before I have to shut the key off. That's something to consider. It'll probably be burnt off. Another good point to help you with your emissions-loving trucks is the fact that if you stop at a stoplight but you leave it in drive, it will hold on before you accelerate out of that longer before it shuts off. If you get stuck in traffic and it doesn't see enough wheel speed, like you're not moving enough, it will stop the regen cycle as a safety feature. You don't want to be burning paint off the car beside you. Or maybe you do, but that's a different conversation depending on what kind of car it is. I'm just saying is, those are considerations, and what you don't know, you don't know. That's my 7-minute rant about diesel exhaust emissions and how to make them live. We can keep these things healthy. If the light comes on, there is something wrong. If there is something wrong, addressing it sooner, depending on your budget expectations, will potentially keep the rest of the system from being more stressed out. A guy that drives around with a plugged filter will see more NOx sensor failures up and downstream because they get plugged up. He will see EGR insufficient or high flow or excessive carbon buildup within his intake or his EGR system. It's natural. The DPF isn't getting rid of the exhaust. It's plugging up, right? Inefficient regens where it's like 190, 190, 190. It's like a deep cycle battery. If you do that with an RV or boat battery, they don't last very long. But if you cycle them down, cycle them up slow, cycle them down, cycle them up slow, in a battery I'm talking, your deep cycle or marine battery will last a long time. DPF's exactly the same. So those are my analogies. Deep cycle batteries, wood stoves, basic things, what to do. Know that us here at DG's ProTech are here to support you. If you have concerns, better than the dealer ever can, because we actually take this time right here. But anyways, that's my rant. If you like it, share it, send it along. Send us a message, www.dgsprotech.com, or hit us on Facebook or Instagram at DGSProTech, or you can just give us a call. We're always there to help here in Lispel, Ontario. Thanks very much for listening, guys. 69% and falling. Still that good temperature, right? That is not a bad too high a temperature for what we're doing. Don't ever be scared of that, okay? Anyways, signing off. Have a great day.